What happens when the owner of a grocery delivery chain finds himself face to face with a customer being humiliated by one of his own workers? Frederick Langston hadn't set foot in a delivery van in over 15 years. His late father had built the company from a single corner store. After inheriting it, Frederick had scaled it into a 5-location grocery delivery chain across the state. Each store had its own delivery team, its own manager, and a steady customer base. But lately, something felt off. The last customer service report on his desk had been the final straw. Long wait times, missing items, rude drivers. They were vague but unsettling. He'd called store managers, got the usual rehearsed answers. We're short-staffed. We're training someone new. Just a bad day. He didn't trust it anymore. So he decided to disappear. He shaved his beard, dyed his hair a dull brown, and wore thick glasses. He gave himself a new name, Rick. Then he signed up for a 2-week contract as a trainee delivery driver at Store 3, the second busiest location. Since the company had grown fast, most part-timers and even many managers had never met the actual owner. The disguise worked. No one questioned the quiet, middle-aged man who showed up in a faded hoodie and cargo pants. "You're Rick? Cool. I'm Dylan," said a lanky 20-something with messy hair and a Bluetooth in one ear. "You're shadowing me for a few days. Let's get it." Their first few deliveries went fine. Dylan was fast but careless. He tossed bags onto porches like they were trash bags. At one house, he left a box of eggs on top of a mailbox. "They'll find it," he said without slowing down. Frederick made a mental note. By the third day, Frederick had already visited 11 homes. He wasn't impressed. Drivers rushed, cut corners, rarely smiled. Nobody was outright cruel, but nobody cared either. That changed on day 4. It was late afternoon when they pulled up to a small house on the edge of town. Dylan checked the manifest. "This one's a pain. Lady's always asking for stuff she didn't order. Super annoying. You handle it." Frederick grabbed the bags and walked up to the door. A moment later, it opened. A woman in her late 50s stood there. She had long graying hair pulled into a neat braid and wore a faded sweater. Her eyes were tired but kind. "Hello. Thank you for coming," she said. "I think there might be a mistake. I ordered lactose-free milk, but this is regular. I can't drink this." Frederick nodded. "Let me check with the driver, ma'am." "One moment." He walked back to the van. "She says the milk's wrong," he told Dylan. Dylan rolled his eyes hard. "Of course she does. We're not running a charity. We don't do exchanges for people who can't read their own receipt. She probably just wants free stuff again." "She seemed polite," Frederick said. "She always seems polite," Dylan shot back. "Watch this." Dylan marched up to the door. Frederick followed, staying a few steps behind. "Ma'am," Dylan began, arms crossed. "We delivered what you ordered. If you can't handle normal groceries, maybe you should shop in person like everyone else." The woman blinked. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to complain. My doctor told me I can't have lactose, and then maybe your doctor should teach you how to place an order right." Dylan cut in. "Can't fix every customer mistake. This isn't a nursing home." Frederick's stomach dropped. The woman's face flushed with embarrassment. She looked like she might cry. "Dylan," Frederick said sharply, stepping forward. "That's enough." Dylan turned, surprised. "What? You're a trainee. Stay out of it." Frederick took a breath. His hands were shaking slightly. "Go wait in the van." Dylan scoffed but walked off, muttering under his breath. Frederick turned back to the woman. "I'm so sorry. That should have never happened. I'll personally fix this." He drove back to the store himself, swapped out the milk, came back and handed it to her with an apology. She hesitated before taking it. "Thank you." "You didn't have to come back." "Yes, I did," he said. "You deserve to be treated with respect." He got back in the van. Dylan sat in the passenger seat, arms crossed, staring out the window. Frederick didn't speak. He didn't need to. He'd seen enough to know this wasn't just a bad delivery, it was a much deeper problem. and he wasn't leaving until he found out just how far it went. The next morning, Frederick arrived early. He sat in his car for a few minutes outside Store 3, watching the delivery vans load. The lot was half full, the sun barely above the trees. A line of employees leaned near pallets waiting for their manifests. Most wore the company windbreakers. A few had earbuds in. Others scrolled through their phones. No one looked particularly driven. Inside, the backroom smelled faintly of damp cardboard and citrus cleaner. Frederick clocked in using the ID badge they'd issued Rick and walked past the dispatch table. A manager he hadn't met before, a thin man with a sharp jaw and a clipboard, was arguing with one of the load workers. "You can't leave early again, Marcus," the manager snapped. "You're not the only guy with a kid. We all got lives. You stay till close or don't come back." The younger man, maybe in his mid-20s, kept his eyes down. "I told you yesterday. My sitter leaves at 6. I can work till 5:30. I've been trying to pick up the early shifts." "You don't get to make your own schedule," the manager shot back. "You're not special." Frederick stepped past them quietly, not wanting to draw attention yet. But he caught the name on the manager's badge, Todd. He made a mental note. Dylan showed up a few minutes later, yawning and tapping on his phone. "You ready or what?" he said without looking up. Frederick grabbed a dolly and helped load the van. Their first stop was an apartment building with no elevator. Dylan handed him the heavier crates. "Hope you like stairs." "This one's on the 5th floor," he said, still glued to his screen. Frederick climbed slowly, balancing the crate against his hip. At the door, a young man in a wheelchair opened it. "Thanks," he said, moving aside to let Frederick in. "I appreciate you carrying it up. Last time, the guy just left it downstairs." Frederick paused. "No one helped you bring it up?" "Nope," the man said. "Said it wasn't his job. Left it by the mailboxes." Frederick left the crate beside the kitchen island and thanked him for his time. Back in the van, he said nothing. Dylan didn't ask. By mid-afternoon, it was raining. Their last run of the day was a bulk order 6 bags, 4 crates, 2 cases of bottled water, all going to a retirement community on the east side. When they arrived, the front desk receptionist waved them in. "Unit 12, she said. "She's 93. Please be gentle with the eggs this time." They walked the length of the hallway. Frederick knocked. An elderly woman answered, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for the door. "Come in, boys," she said. "I've got a little something for you. Made banana bread this morning." Dylan gave a forced laugh. "We're on the clock, ma'am. Can't stop." Frederick followed her inside, placing the bags on the kitchen counter. The apartment was small but clean. A family photo hung over the dining table, 4 generations, all smiling. The woman sliced 2 pieces of bread. "I always try to thank the drivers," she said. "You work so hard. I know it's not easy." Frederick took the plate with a quiet thank you. Dylan didn't take his. Back in the van, Dylan tossed his gloves onto the dashboard. "You see how long that took?" he said. "We're not social workers. These people act like we're their grandkids." Frederick turned toward him. "She just wanted to thank us. That's not unreasonable. You don't get it, man. You're new. If we stop at every house and play tea party, we fall behind and Todd rips us apart. You want to get fired your first week. I want to do the job right," Frederick said. Dylan laughed without humor. "Then you picked the wrong company." The next morning, Frederick asked to ride with someone else. He'd seen enough of Dylan. Dispatch paired him with a woman in her 30s named Liana. She wore her dark hair in a bun and had a quiet, focused energy. As they loaded the van, she checked each bag twice. "Customers call in if the strawberries are bruised," she said. "I'd rather take an extra minute now than deal with a complaint later." Frederick nodded. Smart. Their first 3 stops went smoothly. Liana greeted each customer by name. At one home, she helped an elderly man find his glasses. At another, she noticed a toddler had dropped a toy on the porch and picked it up without pause. They were halfway through the route when she pulled over near a small duplex. "This one's tricky," she said. "The woman here has trouble hearing. She gets nervous if we leave without her seeing us." When the door opened, The customer lit up at the sight of Liana. "You remembered," the woman said, holding the door wide. "Of course," Liana replied. "I brought your receipt and your special order. They had your favorite oranges today." The woman's eyes welled up. "Thank you. I can't tell you how much that means." Frederick helped carry the bags inside. On the way back to the van, he turned to Liana. "You seem to care a lot about this job." She shrugged. "I've been here 6 years. It's not glamorous, but people depend on us. I take that seriously. Do others feel the same?" She hesitated. "Some do. Some don't. It depends who you work under." Todd pushes numbers. Dylan coasts. "A few of us are trying to hold the line, but it's getting harder." "Why?" "We're short-staffed. 2 drivers quit last month. Dispatch keeps overloading the routes. And the good ones, they burn out, or they get passed over for promotions." Frederick tilted his head. "Passed over how?" She glanced at him, then back at the road. "You notice how the loudest guys get ahead? Doesn't matter if they cut corners. Doesn't matter if they treat customers like garbage. If you complain, you're not a team player. Todd protects them. Why doesn't anyone go above Todd?" She gave a bitter laugh. "Who?" "There's no one above him here. The owner? Never seen him. Might as well be a myth." Frederick stared out the window. The rain had started again, soft against the windshield. They finished the route just before dusk. As they parked, Liana pulled the keys and turned to him. "You seem like someone who actually wants to help. If that's true, be careful. People here notice that. And not in a good way." Frederick nodded but didn't answer. He climbed out, walked through the back entrance, and clocked out. Inside the break room, he caught sight of Dylan sitting at a table with Todd, laughing. Todd handed Dylan a printed schedule, full-time hours for next week. Frederick passed without a word and stepped outside. He sat in his car, rain tapping lightly on the roof. He had seen enough. Not just one incident. Not just one bad apple. This was systemic. And it was time to bring it all into the light. Frederick walked into the back office just after opening the next morning. The fluorescent lights flickered above the stained ceiling tiles, casting a dull glow over the cluttered desk. He knocked once, then stepped inside. Todd was hunched over a spreadsheet, chewing a pen cap. "Rick, right?" Todd said without looking up. "You weren't scheduled to clock in till 8. What's the rush?" Frederick shut the door behind him. "Need 5 minutes. Off the record." Todd leaned back, arching an eyebrow. "You're not quitting already, are you?" "Not yet," Frederick said. "But I've got some questions. Straight ones." Todd laughed under his breath. "You're bold for a trainee." "I'm not here to impress anyone," Frederick replied. "I'm here to understand how this place runs." Todd gestured broadly. "It runs like every other delivery hub in the country. Tight margins, tighter deadlines. You either keep up or get out." "What about the people who are trying to do it right?" Frederick asked. "The ones double-checking orders, helping customers, covering for others?" Todd dropped the pen cap on the desk. "This isn't a charity. If they want gold stars, they're in the wrong business. I don't coddle drivers." Frederick didn't blink. "You reward the ones who cut corners?" Todd shrugged. "I reward results. You think groceries get delivered on time because someone's holding doors open and chatting about oranges?" Frederick stepped forward. "I saw a driver berate a woman over a milk substitution in front of her home. No apology, no fix. Just humiliation." Todd leaned forward, voice low. "Customers lie. They try to get freebies. I don't punish my guys for having a backbone." Frederick's tone cooled. "There's a difference between backbone and abuse." Todd stood up, jaw tightening. "You want to keep your spot here? I suggest you stop playing hall monitor and start moving crates." Frederick stared at him for a moment, then walked out without another word. He didn't clock in. Instead, he drove to the central operations office across town. It was a modest building, 2 floors of admin staff and logistics personnel. He used his keycard to enter through the side door. No disguise now, no need. On the second floor, his executive assistant, Julia, looked up from her screen and froze. Mr. Langston? He nodded. Cancel my meetings. I need the conference room now. Get HR and regional ops. And bring the employee files from store 3. Within the hour, 6 people sat around the long table. Frederick stood at the head, sleeves rolled up, hair still dyed and trimmed from his undercover run. He gestured for Julia to close the door. I've spent the last 4 days working out of store 3 as a delivery trainee. No one knew who I was. What I saw was unacceptable. He laid out everything. The mistreatment of elderly and disabled customers. The intimidation of staff trying to do the right thing. The way hours and promotions were handed out based on loyalty to Todd, not performance. No one interrupted. When he finished, he turned to the HR coordinator. Do we have any formal complaints on file from that location? She opened a binder. 3 in the last year. All anonymous. All closed without investigation. Who closed them? She hesitated. Todd did. He's senior enough to manage local complaints unless they escalate. Frederick clenched his jaw. They're escalating now. He picked up the phone on the table and dialed the store's landline. When the line picked up, he kept his voice even. Put Todd on. A pause. Then, Todd speaking. This is Frederick Langston. Silence. I need you to come to the central office. Now. Bring your keys and your badge. Todd's voice cracked slightly. I'm in the middle of... I wasn't asking. He hung up. By the time Todd arrived, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. He walked in stiffly, trying to hold on to some sense of authority. Mr. Langston, he began. I didn't realize. Frederick motioned toward the empty chair across from him. Sit down. Todd sat. Frederick opened a folder on the table and slid a sheet across to him. This is a formal notice of termination. Effective immediately. Todd's eyes widened. Hold on. You can't just... I can. And I am, Frederick said. You've created a culture of fear and negligence. You've allowed abusive behavior to go unchecked. You've undermined the very values this company was built on. Todd's voice rose. You don't know how hard it is to run that store. You show up for a few days and think you see everything? I saw enough, Frederick said. And I listened to the people who've been trying to hold it together while you looked the other way. He turned to Julia. Escort him out. Revoke all access. Todd stood, face flushed, but didn't argue. He left without another word. Frederick looked around the table. Now we clean this up. They spent the next 3 hours reviewing every driver's file. Performance reviews, customer feedback, route data. Names like Liana stood out: high accuracy, 0 complaints, outstanding service. Then there were others. Patterns of poor handling, repeated late deliveries, internal write-ups buried or ignored. Dylan's file showed multiple warnings. One for failing to assist a disabled customer. Another for an inappropriate comment to a junior coworker. Both had been dismissed by Todd. Frederick tapped the file. This one's done too. Call him in. End of day. By late afternoon, Store 3 had a new interim manager, Elisa, a logistics supervisor known for her level-headed leadership. Frederick met her in the break room before the evening shift. You'll have full authority to reorganize the team, he said. But I want 3 things by end of week. 1, a clear process for recognizing high performers. 2, a safe way for employees to report concerns. And 3, a plan to restore customer trust. Elisa nodded. Give me 5 days. Take 4, he said, then glanced at the schedule board. Where's Liana? She's finishing her route. Due back in 10. When she returned, she looked surprised to see him standing at the loading bay. No glasses, no alias. He stepped forward. You've been carrying more than your share. I read your file. You should have been promoted over a year ago. She blinked. I didn't think anyone noticed. I notice now, he said. Starting tomorrow, you're lead driver. Full pay bump. I want you to help train the new hires. Her eyes widened. You're serious? Serious enough to fire 2 people today, he said. And I'm not done. This company survives because of people like you. That's going to mean something again. She nodded slowly, still absorbing it. Frederick turned to leave but paused at the door. By the way, next time someone offers you banana bread, take it. You've earned it. As he walked to his car, the sky turning burnt orange above the warehouse roof, he knew the hard part wasn't over. But the blind spots were gone. And that was the beginning of everything. Store 3 didn't change overnight. That was never the plan. Frederick returned the next morning, not as Rick, not as a trainee, but as himself. He kept his jacket zipped to the collar and walked through the automatic doors with a clipboard and a quiet nod to the front clerks. No announcement, no speech, just presence. Elisa was already in the back, sorting the revised delivery schedule. She looked up as he entered. "We're short 2 drivers today," she said. "I've got Liana covering the longest route. Jonah's taking the rest of Dylan's territory, but he's already doing overtime." Frederick pulled up a chair. "Pull one of the warehouse floaters for non-perishables. We can't keep stretching people. They'll need a license check. Send it to HR. I'll approve it personally." She gave a slow nod, then went back to the manifest. The break room was quieter than before. Not silent, not tense, just different. The usual sarcasm and clicks of gum were gone. The whiteboard had a new section, Customer Feedback Wins. Liana's name was already on it twice. Frederick waited outside near the loading bay just before the afternoon shift ended. A young man with a buzz cut and a clipboard approached him. Marcus, the father Todd had berated earlier in the week. "Sir," he said, hesitating, "I heard what happened. About the changes." Frederick motioned for him to sit on the bench beside the lot. Marcus kept his eyes on the asphalt. "I didn't think anything would ever change here. Todd used to pull my hours if I called out sick for my kid. Told me I was unreliable." Frederick didn't interrupt. "I almost quit last month, but I couldn't afford to. My son's in occupational therapy. I need the insurance. You're staying now?" Frederick asked. Marcus nodded. "If this sticks?" "Yeah, I will." Frederick stood. "Let Elisa know if your schedule ever needs adjusting. You've earned that." He left the lot and drove straight to the regional warehouse. Inside, he met with operations and authorized 2 more contract hires for Store 3, 1 for logistics, 1 for driver support. The budget wasn't pretty, but the way he saw it, neither was losing long-term clients because people couldn't trust them anymore. Back at Store 3 the next day, Liana walked back in just before sundown, her sleeves damp from unloading in the rain. Frederick met her near the lockers. "You good for 5 minutes?" he asked. She nodded, wiping her hands on a towel. They sat near the quiet corner of the dispatch area, away from the loading noise. "You've been doing double routes," he said. "That's not going unnoticed." She nodded again, slower this time. "It's better. Still rough. But people are talking now. Like it's okay to care. Any issues I haven't heard about?" She glanced toward the hallway. "One. Minor, but it's growing. One of the newer hires, Zane, he's been showing up late. Not major delays, but enough that we're getting complaints on the timing windows. He says traffic, but it's always the same excuse." Frederick stood. "I'll handle it." He found Zane in the back, scrolling on his phone, feet propped on a crate. His vest wasn't zipped, and his name badge was clipped to his pocket at an angle. "You've been here 2 weeks, Frederick said. Zane looked up, one eyebrow raised. "Yeah, you're the guy who can Todd." "I am," Frederick replied. "And now I'm the guy asking why you've been late to 4 of your last 6 stops." Zane shrugged. "It's rush hour. I'm not flying these vans." "You want miracles, hire a GPS. You've been parked for 20-minute gaps without logging deliveries." Zane stood, defensive now. "I'm not the only one. You gonna fire everyone who's not perfect?" Frederick didn't raise his voice. "No, but I will fire anyone who lies about their logs and wastes this company's time." Zane scoffed. "Whatever. You're done here," Frederick said. "Turn in your vest and keys." Zane hesitated, then tossed the badge on the crate and walked out without another word. Frederick didn't watch him leave. He simply turned to the clipboard and crossed out Zane's name. That night he called a meeting. It wasn't mandatory. No incentives. Just a note on the whiteboard and a quiet word passed around the break room. Meeting at 6. If you care, show up. Every single driver stayed. They gathered in the back lot, some standing on crates, others leaning on vans, jackets zipped against the wind. Frederick stood on the ramp and spoke plainly. This company was built by someone who believed in showing up for people. Somewhere along the way, we lost that. That's on me. No one interrupted. I'm not here to promise perks or parties. I'm here to say this: if you care about the work, I'll back you. If you cut corners, you're out. No more hiding behind routes or excuses. Your names will mean something again. He looked at them one by one. Liana's lead driver because she earned it. Marcus is keeping his hours because he never should have had to fight for them. And if any of you have ideas for doing this, better routes, training, anything, my door's open. Someone in the back raised a hand. Jonah, the quiet one who rarely spoke. Are we gonna get time to actually train the new hires? Or is it still sink or swim? Frederick nodded. Effective next week, every new hire gets 3 ride-alongs instead of 1. You'll be paid extra to lead them. A few heads nodded. Another voice came from the left, Elisa. And we're rotating route assignments starting Monday. No more dumping the hardest ones on the same people. That got a few murmurs of approval. Frederick stepped down from the ramp. This isn't fixed. But it's moving. The meeting broke up slowly, people nodding to each other as they filed back inside or toward their cars. No one lingered to complain. No one walked off in frustration. They just stayed. And that was enough. By the end of the week, the metrics had started to shift. On-time deliveries climbed. Customer complaints dropped. But more telling than the numbers was the tone inside the store. People straightened their name badges. They checked manifests out loud together. They reminded each other to log drop-offs properly, not because they were scared, but because it mattered. Frederick didn't need reports to tell him it was working. He could feel it in the way drivers greeted each other at shift change. In the way Liana leaned over to help a new hire organize the cold goods without being asked. In the way Marcus actually laughed as he left for the day with his son's drawing tucked into his coat pocket. He stood by the exit as the vans rolled back in, one by one. No disguise. No clipboard. Just a man watching a corner of his father's legacy come back to life. And this time he wasn't looking away.